Hello, and welcome to my course on how to get the attention of highly influential people. Thanks for making the purchase. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to share with you everything that I've learned from years of experience working with and building relationships with influential people. In this lesson, I'm going to be talking in particular about Twitter, but the strategies that I share for what is ultimately a form of networking are applicable on different platforms and even offline. With that, let's dive in. What we'll cover today: one, why attention matters. I want to step back and make sure that we understand why this conversation is important and why these techniques and strategies are useful, especially today. Two, your action plan in a nutshell. Three, how I can help. I'd like you to understand a little of my background because I think it informs the strategies and approaches that I've developed, and I hope that they'll work for you. Number four, the tools that I use, and I think you will find beneficial as well. Number five is the core method that describes the strategy and the steps that I recommend, called the SYNC method. Six, a case study that puts almost all of these steps into light. And then last, your next steps to recap and give you a clear, simple way to get started. Your action plan in a nutshell. First, you want to identify your targets, the people that you hope to build a network with, a relationship with, perhaps even a business with. If we're talking about Twitter, I'd recommend focusing on large accounts, that is, accounts over 500,000 in their following. Then you want to identify accessible accounts in those networks. That means, who are the people that these accounts talk to? Who are their friends? Who do they have relationships with? Who do they pay attention to? Those are the people you want to target first. And accessible accounts means you want to figure out who is most like you, either in their reach or in something about their background and interests. Step three, research their passions. Find out the content and topics they like and admire. The less known, the better. Now, obscure doesn't necessarily mean unknown to the world. Obscure just means you might not realize that this person, this influential person, has an interest in woodworking or a niche political issue or some intellectual thinker of the 19th century. Whatever it might be, the less widely known it is, the more useful it'll be for you. Four, build awareness with your target and with their network. Engage for 2 weeks at least. More is better. Then you want to create high-value, distinctive content on those passions that you've identified, the things that they care about, the things that really get them excited. You'll put those ideas into threads, long tweets, videos, spaces, memes, whatever form of content works best for you and for your account and for the information that you're sharing. And finally, once you have the attention of those accounts, you want to make contact, whether through the DMs or other ways of reaching out and being visible. You want to say hello, ask for nothing, be generous, and be direct. In other words, be a friend, be normal, and that will be the foundation for everything that you hope will come. Relationships, business, investments, or just a stronger sense of connection. Okay, why attention matters. This, of course, is Elon Musk, and he is an extreme case, but he does show very well what value attention has in today's economy and social media space. Elon Musk has a massive following on Twitter. He also owns it. And through it, he uses his large reach and his influence to promote his businesses. Tesla, famously for years, was seen as wildly overvalued, and perhaps still is wildly overvalued, because there was hype, there was interest, there was excitement around the possibilities of Tesla. And much of that, perhaps all of that, had to do with Elon Musk and his ability to command attention. He has a genius for controversy, for attracting press, and for publicity. And he uses it incredibly well in all of his business endeavors. And that's the only reason I think that he's managed to do as many different businesses, different industries as well as he has. He has this consistent, I think, his own personal character. And then on top of that, his ability to draw attention to SpaceX, Tesla, now Twitter, and beyond. He's putting into real business practice his ability to draw attention to himself. Now, on a smaller scale, that can hold for us too. If you have a tiny audience and you're trying to sell a product, or you're trying to attract headhunters or investors, it's much, much more difficult than if you have a medium-sized or large following, lots of people who know you, who can recommend you to other people and help you achieve your goals. Now, looking at it at a more theoretical level, attention matters in a very specific way online. We live in an attention economy. Business flows to those brands and people who have the most attention. This is why influencers and people who sell their followings on different social media platforms tend to do really well. They have something of value. They have people's attention. Now, what you see on the right here is an image of the internet. This is a map that was generated that shows the actual structure of the internet. What does it show? The way it's mapped is around hubs. The internet does not have a clear one-to-one linear relationship between different points online and different people. There are clusters of very dense connection, and the structure is highly skewed toward these hubs. These are brands or organizations, people who are highly influential and are centers of connection. You need to be connected to one of these hubs and centers of connection in order to get anywhere, to reach the other parts. So to achieve your goals, you need to be associated with hubs, those people who have lots and lots of connections, and that connects you to the much wider world of the internet and business. Who are highly influential people? In your niche, whatever it might be, they'll be very different from mine or pretty much anybody else's. And say even within a large area of interest like finance or investing, there are going to be very different influential, highly influential people depending on your style of investing or what you're focusing on. Are you focusing on accounting? Are you focusing on value investing? So for each niche and for each community, there are different highly influential people. That means it's not just about numbers. It's not just about the people that everyone will recognize at the dinner table if you mention their names. We're talking about those people who have access, reputation, and perceived leadership in their field. And each niche has different influencers of different sizes, small, medium, and large, and they tend to know about each other. Influencers, in short, are those who reach other influencers. Now, why have I put the image of this person on the right? I have put him there because he is, I think, a highly influential person. And you probably don't recognize him unless you are interested in philosophy. This is Nick Bostrom. He's an Oxford University philosopher, Swedish national, and he has been cited as the most influential philosopher under age 40, perhaps now age 50, for his research publications, his papers, which are highly cited. And then even in the popular culture, there has been crossover interest in some of his theories, like simulation theory. I don't know if he was the sole person who devised it, but he's popularized simulation theory. And for that reason, among others, he is followed by, or his influence extends to Elon Musk. Elon Musk has described Nick Bostrom as somebody he's interested in and sees as influential. This is the kind of person who may be valuable in your niche. And it's also good to be aware, like I just said, of who the really, really, really large accounts pay attention to, like Nick Bostrom. Who are the other influencers they're looking at who might be easier to reach because they're not so widely known? The benefits of the method and the framework that I'm talking about here. First, it's going to help your content no matter how long it takes to achieve success, and I think it will take less time than you imagine. You will learn in the process to write to one person. And this is what attracts followers. When you say you, everybody hears me, an actual person. When I read you on the Twitter timeline or in an email or elsewhere, it speaks directly to me. And especially if the rest of the writing reflects my interests, my feelings, then I feel very understood and very attracted to what's being written. So this approach of writing with one influential person or a little community of influential people in mind will really help make you a better writer and content creator. Second, there is a snowball effect. As you put this into action, you'll notice, like anything else, the first and second highly influential person you're trying to reach probably will be the hardest. It will take a little while, but once you do get them to follow you or get the engagement that you're looking for, you will see it gets easier. That's because Twitter will highlight prominent accounts who follow you. So, for example, Lara Logan here is somebody who follows me, and she, when she would have come to my profile page some months ago, would have seen, oh, I'm followed by several people that she knows. This is a kind of social proof. And so it makes it easier for her to say, okay, this guy is interesting. He's worth paying attention to because these other folks that I know and respect and like follow him and are interested in him. And third, you will differentiate. If you're writing with a very crafted and intentional and thoughtful approach to what you're sharing, that is, you're trying to find interesting content on the thinkers and the ideas and the topics that your target really cares about, you will seem different from everybody who's trying to write the same kinds of threads on AI or weight loss or whatever it is that you might see day in and day out. This will make you stand out, and that'll also be beneficial in a broad way, not just for this strategy. How I can help and why I can help. I am a journalist or former journalist, a writer, a media coach, and a communications executive. I've written for the Wall Street Journal, The Atlantic, Rolling Stone, Esquire, CNBC. In my work and in my past, I have coached and ghostwritten for executives for major national publications. And in the last 6 months, I've grown my own Twitter following after a long period of being dormant to 48,000 plus. And that has come in large part to some really significant engagements I've gotten from VIP accounts, the kinds of influential A-list people that I hope to guide you toward as well. Some highlights to show what I've managed to experience over the last couple months. Elon Musk has liked and commented on posts that I've written on separate occasions. Jack Dorsey, the creator of Twitter, who sold it, he took it public and then ultimately was the one who oversaw the sale to Elon Musk some months ago. He also has liked my content. Edward Snowden, I don't think he needs any introduction, former intelligence officer for the US, now living in exile in Russia. Alexandra Daddario shared my content, Jordan B. Peterson. All of these people and more, who else you'll see in the rest of the presentation, are folks that I would never have thought reachable in any other medium. And one of the beauties of Twitter and other social media platforms is it does create this level playing field where you can get to know or at least interact with people that are interesting. Now, I'm not saying I'm a fan of each of these people and all that they say and do, not at all. But it's, as I said, beneficial when you understand the way the attention economy is structured to get noticed by and get the respect of, get the engagement of people who have a lot of influence and a lot of followers and cultural relevance and cachet. It will only help you to be noticed by those who are large and influential in your niche. Over time, this is now, I think, over a month old, this chart here, if not more. And unfortunately, I can't generate a new one. But over time, I've managed to attract a number of large accounts in my followers. And I share this again just to show that in time it snowballs, and you can trust what I say because I've gone from having very little to having quite a few influential people that I can engage with regularly. So if you just see here on the right, it lists by followers, and if you go down to the bottom, there are 25 accounts with over 1 million followers who follow me, and 17 with 500,000 to 1 million. You get the idea. It's important to think about this. I'm not just sharing this to establish some credibility. I want you also to realize if you look at an account that has, say, 100,000 followers, you don't know necessarily, unless you do a little analysis, which I would recommend doing if you're truly interested in this. You don't necessarily know who's in there following. And somebody who has 1,000 followers, all of whom are members of Congress, heads of state, CEOs of organizations and major Fortune 500 companies, that is a really, really different account from somebody who has 100,000 followers who don't really pay attention, aren't in countries that you're targeting, and aren't really relevant or engaged, and maybe just have a few followers each. It does matter who your followers are. And there are ways to look into that and find out, but bear that in mind. When you see a large account, it doesn't necessarily mean they're reaching the people that you really care about. All right, how to do it. Let's get into the method. Overall, my strategy that I recommend is you want to get in sync with influential people. You want to be in sync with their interests, their state of mind, and with their community. Tools to do it. You may or may not be familiar with some of these already. There are several paid tools on this list, and while I would love to give you only free options, unfortunately, I don't know of anything that has quite the capability of the first one, Blackmagic. So Blackmagic.so is my core tool for doing this work, and I will mainly focus on using it because I think it's the most versatile and powerful for the functions that I need and that I recommend you do too. Now, the other ones below here are also valuable in their own way. Tweemax, number 2, is a plugin that is still free. It's connected to Tweet Hunter, and you may ultimately need to pay. And I think there are certain things that are available just for Tweet Hunter subscribers. I'm no longer a subscriber to Tweet Hunter, but I use that for some additional data. Tweepsmap, which was formerly FollowerWonk up until recently when they were acquired. This is a tool that will let you analyze accounts. So when I just mentioned before that it's useful, especially if you're trying to build your network with useful accounts for you, you want to know, okay, well, who's actually in the following of these people that I'm interested in. You can use Tweepsmap to analyze, all right, how many accounts are large, how many accounts of their followers are small, where are they based geographically, and other data that will tell you, gender breakdown, even job title to some extent. You can get a sense of really how relevant somebody's audience is for you, and if you want to prioritize contact with them. Finally, Twitter lists. TweetDeck, great free tool owned by Twitter. Tweet Hunter, Hypefury. You can use any tool to manage Twitter lists, including just doing it in the app, which is what I do. But you're going to want to organize the contacts for your niche and then any other accounts you want to follow so you can easily scan through what they're talking about and do your engagement. All right, let's jump into the core method that will tie it all together. I call it the SYNC method. It's easy to remember that way. And SYNC stands for Site, Interest, Interaction, and Connection. These are the 4 steps you need to keep in mind when you're starting to build a relationship or take the steps that will take you to the point where you can build a relationship with a highly influential person. So sight, you want to be seen, noticed, observed. Interest, you want to attract somebody's genuine curiosity. Interaction, well, of course, you want to get engagement. You want to get some kind of response to show that they are paying attention. In fact, they've gone beyond that. And finally, connection. That's when you convert to an actual direct one-on-one conversation of one form or another. And it won't necessarily lead to anything, but there's always value in converting and offering that potential to build a real personal relationship. Under this method are some psychology basics that I want to share and review with those who probably know this already. First is familiarity. We respond better to things that we've seen before. Part of the word familiarity is family. If something feels familiar to you, then you are more inclined to respond well to it. Second is reciprocity. That's the instinct we all have to help those who have done good toward us. It's irresistible, even when you know that reciprocity is sometimes a trick that people can use against you. And more often than not, it's just a genuine human form of interaction. But if you do something kind for somebody, they're going to feel more inclined to do something helpful back to you. Third is mirroring. Mirroring is when we feel understood because our feelings and ideas are reflected back to us. We like to feel understood. The bottom line in all of these basics is you need to pay attention to what your target audience cares about. It's not about you, it's about them. You can only build a reasonable and effective strategy to get to know somebody if you know what they really like, because you want to be something that they see as likable or interesting, or at least worth knowing more about. So it starts with paying attention to them and trying to build from there. Okay, step one, cite. The goal is to get the target accounts to see you. You want to become familiar. You want them to get used to seeing your name and your face around their world, their virtual world. And I'll stay focused on Twitter now, but bear in mind, I do think these have ways of being applied to LinkedIn or Instagram or other platforms, including email and things that are quite different. But the basic principles should apply. Okay, how do you become familiar? The strategy is to enter their social circle, enter their network. You want to interact with the people that they interact with. On the right here, I've shown a screenshot of when Zero Hedge, which is a large account in the finance space, retweeted something that I wrote a number of months ago. How did that come about? Zero Hedge doesn't follow me. We've never really exchanged any direct communication. It came about because over a period of weeks, I started to engage with his account and a few others that he seemed to pay attention to, and I became visible. And so when I shared something that was relevant to him, as I'll walk you through how to do in a moment, he ended up deciding to retweet it out of the blue, which of course was a huge boost to the account and got me on the radar of many other large accounts. Here are the tactics for cite, for getting into that zone of visibility. First, follow them. I know that there are some gurus out there who will say you don't want to follow accounts willy-nilly. You want to only follow the accounts that you truly want to have on your timeline every day. Yeah, I get that. But there's a real effective tactic underneath following them, which is when you check on somebody's account for the first time, you like to see that they follow you. Okay, and you want to be in that position. So as a starting point, you don't want to lose the opportunity for an engagement because they saw your content, they liked it, they checked out your profile, they saw you weren't following them. Suddenly they didn't feel like you were part of their community, right? So you want to be seen as part of their community. So follow them, add them to a list, and put them into a routine where you comment quickly, let's say within the first 5 minutes of a post that they share, and add value. And those are two, I think, meaningful hurdles to clear. You don't want to post on everything that your target account, let's say Zero Hedge, you don't want to post on everything that Zero Hedge says. I would recommend put it on a list, put his account and other accounts on a list that you check in on. I call mine the whales accounts, and you can call it whatever you want. The point is you want to look at those posts most relevant to you and your interests. And so that means checking in regularly, seeing what's been written in the last 5 minutes. If something's been written in the last 5 minutes and you can say something interesting, clever, valuable, positive, go ahead and do that. Next, follow those that they follow and interact with often. Who is in their inner circle? You can use Black Magic to analyze who they engage with most often. You can also do this with FollowerWonk or a tool called Twitter Circle. And you should do that with accounts you're curious about. It'll help you to identify those accounts that might be closer to your level. So first, figure out who's in their inner ring, and then try to interact with those people. Within that group, prioritize people who are near your level, who has a similar follower size, or who has some shared experience. They're from a similar place to you. They grew up under similar circumstances, whatever it might be. They're professionally related. Find those people who have the most common ground with you and prioritize interacting with them. And that will get you started to quickly be seen in the circle of this VIP account you're trying to attract the attention of. Here's that tool I mentioned. It's called Glance in Blackmagic, and you can plug in your own account. And what I've done here is I've plugged in my own, and I've plugged in Naval's account. Naval is a large funder and philosopher, really, who has a large following of 2 million plus on Twitter, and I think he follows 0 people. So these are folks that he interacts with, but does not follow. Now, I've had interactions with Naval because of putting the strategy in place, and I still don't know exactly how he comes across content. I assume he uses lists, but I don't know. In any case, so you want to look at these accounts and take a moment to look at the profiles and follower counts and the content of each one of them. And that will quickly help you sort out who's going to be most relevant for you. And I would say you want to target as many of those people as you really can meaningfully interact with. Some examples of my experience doing this. As I mentioned, Naval, large account, doesn't follow anybody. I spent some time interacting, engaging with him about 6 months ago, which is when I started becoming active on Twitter again. I check in every couple of hours, check on my Twitter list, see what he'd posted. And if he said something that I was interested in, I had something to share, I would make a comment. And then over time, I became aware of the accounts that he was interacting with the most, and I would do something similar. Eventually, after doing that for a number of weeks, I got a like or two from him on one of the comments. So then I knew he was paying attention. And ultimately, what you see here is a screenshot of a thread that I posted last year on getting a blue check before they were a subscription fee. And it somehow got enough on Naval's radar that he liked the entire thread. That would not have happened if we hadn't, up to that point, built up if I hadn't built up visibility with him and with his network. Second one here is Zuby. Zuby's a large account, a rapper. He, I think, is over 1 million followers as of the recording time. And I'd engaged with his stuff. I always liked his independent thinking and his way of writing. So at some point I sent him a DM just complimenting his work. And after 1 or 2 little exchanges, I thought he might be interested in this thread that I did. So I shared it with him, and it resulted in a comment. And then finally, Balaji, who's become much more visible, I think, since COVID times. He's another large account in the tech VC space. He also is somebody who doesn't follow me, but I have interacted with his content over time, and I have mutual connections and followers with him. And lo and behold, this is a good way to get engagement when he sees something that, as he did, he saw something that I shared which interested him. This is a video on a media theorist called Marshall McLuhan, and Balaji interacted with that. Step 2 of the sync method, the I is for interest. Simple goal is to make these people interested in you. The strategy, you need to be insightful and valuable on things that they care about. Sounds simple, sounds obvious, but you need to break it down. You need to be insightful, you need to be valuable, you need to figure out the topics and matters and subjects that they care about. On the right, you'll see some examples where I've managed to get a little more substantive engagement from large accounts, and usually with some smaller engagements that came before. To do this effectively, you need to do research, and you need to go to sources that are not run-of-the-mill that everybody else is using. So what I've listed here are some of the things that I use, depending on your field, your content, your niche. These may or may not be relevant, but I want to share them in case they are. So what do? First, read and pay attention to what these accounts say. Find your target account and go through the whole timeline for the last couple weeks. Read and take notes. Then you can go and do research on interviews. If this is a public person, they've probably done some podcasts, probably done a few media interviews or a lot of media interviews over the years. And what you want to do is pick out the names and subjects of things they like and care about. It could even be a TV show, What are they a super fan of that people might not know as widely? It doesn't have to be a secret, but most people don't put in this time to identify the actual real interests of the people they're trying to reach. Once you have those potential subjects to write about, whether it's the names of books, names of movies, the names of thinkers, or even just a location that you know this person loves and spends a lot of time in, then you want to do your research and figure out what you can add that is valuable. Gutenberg.org is where I go for open source books or ones that are in the public domain. An amazing resource. Wikiart.org has fantastic paintings that are also in the public domain. Between the two, if you're looking for historical content, you'll find extraordinary stuff there that is largely, if not forgotten, it's just not shared enough. The third source, HathiTrust, is similar to the first two. And Public Domain Review is a website that curates things that are in the public domain. That's pictures, interviews, some videos, old documents, old sources, and find some of the most interesting ones to highlight. And I find that always stimulating, even if I don't often get concrete ideas from it. Internet Archive, likewise, is a wonderful database and repository of content that's often underexplored. Government sources. C-SPAN, which I didn't list here, but C-SPAN has a deep archive of video content, archives.gov. If you're not American, I'm sure your governments might have similar resources to these. And of course, you can use the American resources from wherever. These are all good ways to get below the surface of what everybody else is talking about and bring something to light. You don't need to be brilliant or completely innovative in sharing content on, let's just say, Nick Bostrom. You wanted to find something of interest on Nick Bostrom, so you might get the attention of all his followers and fans out there who might themselves be influential. Well, plug his research or the things that Nick Bostrom talks about into some of these websites, and you can get started on identifying something interesting to put him in dialogue with. You could show another perspective on simulation theory, assuming you're able to find one. Those are just the ways you start to uncover interesting pieces of content that add value that is not otherwise appearing in the general conversation. Another way to do this, a little more straightforward, cross-platform arbitrage. So what works on YouTube is going to work on Twitter. What works on Facebook and LinkedIn is going to work on Twitter, and vice versa. So wherever you are most active, you can research content on other platforms and see what's most engaging and then use that for your content. Here are some specific tactics, some of which I touched on a moment ago. How do you get the interest of a VIP account? Study who they are, where they are, and what they're interested in. You got to learn about them first. That's how you find out where you have the most common ground, where you can add the most value. And you want to write on topics they care about. Presumably, if this is an influential person in your niche, this is also going to be good for your account. You want to be writing on things that are relevant to the same audience, and so this will help you to focus on topics that are rich and relevant. Leverage what makes you knowledgeable, interesting, and unique. If you don't have anything to say about Nick Bostrom, don't. And I don't particularly have anything to say about him, so that might not be where I start. Although I would still look into different subjects and see if maybe there is actually a way that I can add something. What thinkers do they like? What books, videos, what accounts? What news interests them? What memes? Can you quickly add an angle on those topics of importance? Okay, another tactic, somewhat underappreciated or used unwisely, you can tag very large accounts. And there's a specific way to do this. If, let's say, you wanted to get the attention of Nassim Taleb and you didn't know how to begin, well, of course, start with step one and get to know his network and start to interact with him and his network. And step two, of course, look into his books or lectures, and that's a great way to get on the radar of somebody like him, a person who has a long track record of sharing relevant ideas. Well, cite those ideas, make a thread talking about some of the biggest, most insightful takeaways from this or that book and how they apply to the news story of the day. And when you do that, you can tag them. Nassim might not be a great example because I'm not sure how we would respond to it, but I can tell you it's worked for me, and I'll show you the case study later. I've cited several large accounts and saying, I really enjoyed this book. Here's what I learned. And by tagging them, I got a retweet or a response. The other way to get on their radar without just leaving comments is to use quote tweets. And I would be liberal and deliberate about using lots of quote tweets on good content from those accounts. And always try to add value. If you write something that's very brief and doesn't particularly add anything, I wouldn't expect an engagement. It doesn't hurt though. And finally, take the time to study what they've said, extract lessons. Here too, digging a little deeper than everyone else will always help. Last, try to be distinctive. Don't just ape others. If you're trying to get the attention of Nassim Taleb, well, don't just write something about Black Swan. Go deeper, be more distinctive and personalized and interesting. So find information that would surprise them. Or if you have a personal story on a topic they care about that is relevant, share that, and that will always make you stand out. And any one of these could succeed, might not succeed, but this is the method that you want to be putting into practice repeatedly to increase the odds that you're going to get that large engagement or interaction that you can build on. And especially the last example, giving a personal story on a topic that they care about, that will only help you on your journey as a creator and building an audience of your own, creating influence, attracting investors. Having those personal stories out there on important topics in your niche is always going to help. Step 3 in the sync method is interaction. This is when you've made that beautiful piece of content on something that they care about. You've been patient, you've been persistent, you've interacted with that inner circle of people who are near your level. And at last, sometimes sooner than you think, you'll attract some kind of engagement, a like, a retweet, a comment, or more. The strategy to get there is, of course, build goodwill. Don't be pushy, but be patient until you prompt a response. Become irresistible to that engagement. Some practical steps to get started, I would recommend casting a wide net. So up to now, I've been talking about mainly one person, and I think that is the right way to conceptualize it. But I wouldn't literally do one VIP or large account at a time. I would list 10 and maybe more. Make that into a single list. If you're like me, I find that helpful. Those very large accounts, you want to see all 10, 15, 20, whatever the number is, in one place, and whoever's written in the last 5 minutes when you check in that Twitter list, leave a comment, add something valuable if you can, and in that way you will naturally cycle through a bigger group. You'll increase the odds. You're not sure who is going to be most inclined to interact at any given time, so you want to be spreading your engagements widely, not just focusing on one person obsessively. And once you've done that and increased your chances by targeting multiple people and being persistent and patient without being pushy, you wait for a couple weeks, and ultimately, if you're putting out the right kind of content, it will happen. It's like a lightning strike. You put yourself in position, and eventually a storm does roll in, and it will lead to a lightning strike on the high ground. You want to be there. So once you have a like or comment on your stuff, that's when we go to the stage of monitoring. This is what's really important. To know whether or not you've achieved success, you really need to be paying attention to the data. How do you know when you've succeeded, when you've gotten the attention of a very influential account in your niche? You need to use a tool like Blackmagic. And here I'm showing you the sidebar. This is a Chrome plugin. I'm sure you can do it in other browsers as well. It's a sidebar that appears on certain tweets and on your profile. If you're not familiar with it, I recommend downloading it, setting it up, and then opening it up on your account and on some of your most successful recent posts. What you see here is one of mine, and I've also shown you the sidebar with my markings for what I think are some of the most important functions you'll need. When a tweet is going viral, you really want to regularly check in to see who is interacting with it. And what I mean is, you'll have thousands of accounts over the course of a day or more sharing, liking, commenting on a viral post. It's very easy to lose track of who is doing it and what is driving all of that engagement. A tool like Blackmagic lets you see in real time what's happening, and you do need to check in real time. So you need to monitor for large accounts. The way you do that is you have your post on the page and you open up the sidebar and then you filter. So under the engagement section, you will click one by one through likes, retweets, and comments or quote tweets. The quote tweets function isn't working anymore, unfortunately, but likes and retweets are the essential ones. And do them one by one because it will surface different accounts. And then the second red marking shows you how to sort by follower size. And by doing that, you'll see who are the largest accounts at this little snapshot, this moment in time, who are liking and retweeting your post. When you see a large account that is either interesting to you or you recognize, open up the person's page and think about sending a comment on one of their posts. You want to engage with their content. You can direct message if it's really, really relevant, if it rises to the occasion, if it rises to the level of being worth it, or retweet something of theirs. At a minimum, you want to be aware of who is engaged with your stuff and take a screenshot or take a note so that later on you're aware, okay, I have a handful of large accounts, some of which I was targeting and some I wasn't, who are now aware of me. They've seen my post, and within the next 24 to 48 hours, you have a window of opportunity to leverage that engagement and potentially get on their radar in a more significant way. Another key function of this sidebar in Blackmagic is below the section I just showed. So if you scroll down, you'll see, and you'll have to scroll quite far if it's a viral tweet, you'll scroll down to impactful engagements. And this will show you from hour to hour whose interaction with your post drove the virality. So in this case, you can see it was a series of 5 different accounts, some of them likes, some of them retweets, all of which were from large accounts. And in each case, they drove a spike in engagement, and that's what it's capturing here. Now, this will usually capture the big ones, but not always. And that's why you do need to double check with the other function that I mentioned. The other reason that I recommend doing this every couple of hours, if you have something that's truly viral with many engagements, it will refresh periodically and wipe out some number of accounts. And the only reason that I know that Jack Dorsey interacted with one of my posts is I happened to see it when it happened. I was checking this sidebar and suddenly a 5 million follower account popped up. I clicked through, it was Jack. Okay, now I've captured it and I know that he's seen my stuff and we've had some engagement. If I hadn't in the moment, and if I hadn't done that with Elon Musk as well, I might quickly have missed the opportunity. Now, of course, Elon Musk has several accounts that will alert you if he likes or comments on your stuff, but 99.9% of accounts will have nothing like that. And you will just miss it. You won't know why you went viral. You won't know that you had that big interaction with a Hollywood actor unless you're monitoring your data. So I can't stress this enough. If you're going to put this into practice, you really need to be watching your engagements, because the successful posts, the ones that will really get noticed, are usually popular ones. And that means you won't have an easy time figuring out who is interacting with your stuff. And if you can't know that for sure, you're never going to be able to go to the last step, which is a direct interaction, a direct communication. Another tool to apply here is Twemex. And this gets around that functionality problem in Blackmagic I mentioned with quote tweets. It doesn't pick those up so well anymore. You need to go into Twemex, and this is also a sidebar that you can install. And if you toggle over from highlights, you see what I've circled at the top. There's a section called quote tweets. So you go to your post, go to your popular item, and when you go over to quote tweets, it'll show you who has interacted with your content, who's quote tweeted it, and it will sort them automatically by account size. What that will do is it will show you what major accounts and voices and people saw your stuff and reshared it with their own comment, and then you can build on that. Go and interact with their own post or think about direct communication. The last step of the sync method is connection. The goal here is to take an interaction and engagement and to turn it into something more. You want to secure their ongoing support, from casual to maybe more substantive. And the strategy is really simple. Ask for nothing. As much as possible, never ask for anything. Now, of course, down the road, that might change if you actually have a project to work on together, but set that aside completely for now. And when entering into any connection, any interaction like this, you want to approach as a friend, somebody who has no interest in mind apart from getting to know the other person and sharing your appreciation of their support. On the right, I put the screenshot of Rob Schneider, the actor who has shared my stuff on many occasions, and not because I've asked him to or even really set out to get his attention, but I've been really pleased and gratified to seem to get on his radar. And because of that, I've sent him DMs. We haven't actually struck up any kind of friendship or relationship. I don't want to mislead here, but he's an example of somebody who is supportive, and I've done my best to make sure he knows that I appreciate it. And that's plenty, that's sufficient, and that means something. Now, to give you another tool that's useful in moving to this stage of conversions, that is direct personal outreach, Blackmagic Digest is extremely helpful. This is a weekly, or if you set it up this way, a daily newsletter that will give you highlights of your accounts and your analytics from Blackmagic. Now, to get to the section I'm going to talk about here, you need to scroll all the way to the bottom, and sometimes it's cut off, so you will need to open it in another window. This is the new followers section, and what it shows you is the biggest accounts over the last week or the last day, if you have something that's very viral, who have followed you. And it's helpful, especially when you might miss something and you're not checking all the time. You want to always go back and give yourself the opportunity to see if there are new people you're connected to who you might be interested in. So scan through the bottom of that email to see your new followers sorted by account size, and that's done automatically. And you may be surprised, I certainly am every time I've done this, there's always somebody interesting when you look at the biographies, and you should follow back if you are interested, and or send a DM if you think the person has some shared connection and might want to hear from you, or just you want to acknowledge that they followed you and that they have done work and writing that you appreciate. It's a great opportunity to do it while the memory is fresh. So the example that I took a screenshot from here is when I had something go fairly viral the other week. There were a number of these accounts that I either didn't know or I didn't notice when they popped up on my screen. So I went through each one and did what I describe here. And they don't always lead to substantive relationships or friendships by any means, but it's always helpful and beneficial to acknowledge when you have reached a level of connection. So what are some tactics or best practices, I should say? As soon as you have that meaningful engagement interaction, or several of them, think about sending a direct message. And if they're open to it, I would do that as soon as you think that they would be able to remember your account specifically. You want to be appreciative, generous, casual, and real. Ask for nothing. As if you're writing to a friend, as if you're writing to somebody who has nothing to offer you. All you want to do is share a warm sentiment and be memorable. So how do you be memorable? If you have a common interest or biographical detail, mention it. If you're from a similar place or have followed a similar trajectory, anything that might be specific and memorable and real, feel free to mention it. And don't sweat it if you don't. Most importantly, in my experience, is to thank them and say you enjoy their work. Everybody likes to hear it, and especially for people who are used to getting asked for favors all the time, just getting a nice acknowledgement that they're producing something beneficial to you does say a lot, and it makes a positive impression. I would encourage you to mention something specific if you're going to say you enjoy their work. You can say, I love your writing on this topic, your analysis of this news issue, whatever it might be that is real and is relevant to you and your focus. I've mentioned several things here. Don't forget, you want to be brief. We're talking 3 or 4 sentences max, and end with a positive, warm statement. Something like, thanks for everything, or thanks for the good work. Please keep it up. Kudos. However feels natural to you, you want to leave it on a high note. And often, doing this very simple message, you'll get a response from some number of people, and it might be quite personal and quite specific and appreciative. Or you'll get an emoji, a thumbs up, or a little heart, or something else. And even if not, even if you don't get any specific acknowledgement of your message, they've probably seen it. And if they have, it's only going to leave a good impression and a more direct and memorable impression of you than even what they saw on the timeline. Another thing to keep in mind, you can follow up if they engage again. You have something else come out, you're writing on a topic they care about, and they give a comment or they like or retweet it. You can send something else only if you do have a new piece of information to share or another way of just being warm and appreciative that isn't repetitious. A case study here to show how it has worked for me. Edward Snowden, you may remember him. He is the former intelligence official, or analyst, I should say, who fled the US with a great deal of data. And in 2012, I believe, he gave the leaked documents to a reporter named Glenn Greenwald in Hong Kong. I was in Hong Kong at the time and was a reporter, and that meant I was one of the reporters who was asked to write about him and to some extent to search for him. Now, we didn't find him really, and he ultimately left without being found by any reporter except for Glenn Greenwald. But all that said, I was thinking of this when I asked my followers in January what topic they had changed their mind about. And I got a lot of good responses. After I did, I decided to share my own, which is that I changed my mind about Edward Snowden. Since the issue was hot over a decade ago, I have come to different opinions and perspectives about what he did and what his intentions were, and even to some extent what the effects were. So I acknowledged that I changed my mind, and I tagged his account. I typed his handle in there. He retweeted it to his 5 million followers. I know this because I was following on Blackmagic, and you can see the screenshot that I took at the time. After that happened, I decided to send him a DM elaborating on how I changed my mind, and again, stating that I saw some benefit to what he did and for his influence, and I thanked him for that. A week later, I decided to recut a video that he had shared earlier. It was a video of a CIA officer talking about how in Vietnam he had been part of an influence operation to manipulate journalists who were reporting on the war. I took the longer video, shared some different parts of it, added additional context, and tagged Snowden again and cited him as a source. I think I even sent it to him in the DM, just saying, "Hey, I thought you might be interested in this because I saw you shared it earlier. And in any case, hope you're doing well." Very casual, very simple, and not even asking for anything in particular, just sharing it as an FYI. He retweeted that one again. Here are the screenshots from that series of interactions. And while it was easy and straightforward, it's rare that things go quite as simply as this, but that's why it's good to have a framework. So you have many different ways of engaging with somebody based on how it's going. And in this case, since we had a little bit of shared experience. We were both in the same city during this most important time in his life, and I was playing a part in that in a very modest way. It gave us more scope. So in the first engagement, I mentioned him. Then after that, I sent a warm DM so that he was more aware of me, and there was a little more trust and understanding of where I was coming from. Then I wrote that thread based on something he'd shared and sent it to him. And the result, we had an additional retweet. And since then, there hasn't been anything in particular, though I've occasionally followed up with a DM just to acknowledge if I like something that he shared. And the final thought, and I always keep this in mind, is you don't want to be a pest. You should be very respectful and acknowledge that you're using somebody's time, even just by sending them a note. Treat your communications as if you were a friend and think of the long term. You don't need to ask for anything, because if you end up developing a rapport with somebody, naturally benefits will emerge. Your goal is just to establish some contacts and some support and some mutual interest. Be empathetic. Remember the golden rule. Wish them well during happy moments and acknowledge when they're going through a tough time. Be positive. And if you're interested in more and talking about how some of these tactics and strategies can fit into a larger framework for building your own authority and reputation, which I do for executives and for founders and others who need to build up their profile, feel free to reach out to me directly. And if you're interested just in additional details on anything that I've shared here, or just to say hello, please feel free. You can DM me on Twitter at bfcarlson, email me at benjamin@bfcarlson.com, or if you're interested in reading my longer writing, you can see my Substack, The Carlson Letter, at bfcarlson.com. Now, I want to leave you with a few exercises and a clear action plan to remind you how to get started. Now, to start, let's look at this first exercise, which is to put us in the right frame of mind. When was the last time someone approached you online and became a friendly contact? How did it happen? And why did you welcome the outreach? What was it that person said, and how was it said, that made it possible for you to hear and to be open to it? That's what you want to be in your interactions with people that you want to know. Whether they're a huge account or not, that's the framework that you want to apply. And it's worth remembering that many, many high-profile people just get a lot of requests and attempts at using their influence all day long. And somebody who just seems sincerely interested and to be appreciative and positive is a bit rarer than you might think. So keep in mind that just by being a nice and decent person, you are standing out and giving something of benefit to the person you're reaching out to. All right, that action plan again, restated in simple terms. Step 1, identify your targets. Who are the whales of your niche? Who are those large accounts and highly influential people that you would like to reach? It could be accounts over 250,000 or 500,000, 100,000, or a million. What you want is people with genuine reach who reach the right people for what you're writing about. And you make a Twitter list of those accounts. I follow it directly in the app. You can follow it in any of the apps I mentioned before, TweetHunter, Hypefury, or TweetDeck. What you want to do is become part of that conversation. Think of it as a room that you're walking into, and people are already talking and having discussions and sharing information at a high level. You want to enter into that respectfully and by adding value. So make content on the themes that people are talking about in that community, and comment, engage, and interact. Add value and slowly work your way toward the center part of the circle. Step 3, when you're doing this, make sure you monitor so you don't miss when you get an interaction. You will aim for those large whale accounts, and by doing so, you will pull in other whales that you did not even realize were watching and paying attention. That's the beauty of doing this that I've found, is you will have opportunities that you didn't realize and you didn't even set out to have, because you will appeal to more accounts than even you intend to. So monitor and make sure you don't miss those big engagements. That's a really important step. And right after you get one, when you're fresh in the memory, do something. Now, I have you send a DM. I think sending a DM is appropriate when it's the right moment, and you should just decide whether it's the first interaction or maybe the second or even the third. But when you're fresh in memory, go engage with their content. Leave a comment, like or retweet something. You want to reinforce who you are and that you are somebody who matters. And that's it. I would love to hear from you. If you have any other questions, I'm going to leave this up on screen. And thanks for watching.